Greetings, comrades. My name is Gigantles, and in today's video, I'm not going to be talking about a particularly happy topic. It has to do with an unfortunate coincidence of a couple of similar events. One of which you can probably guess what it will be about, and the other you'll only know if you've been following me on my Facebook page. So, to begin with, a few days ago, it was late at night because here in the UK it was late at night, and I was busy doing some my evening prayers because I have an app on my phone called Intercede, and it allows me to pray novenas and keep track of them. And so I think I just either finished them or I was about to start them, and I was scrolling through Facebook, and I came across a post which claimed that Charlie Kirk had been shot at an event, and I thought, oh, is he okay? And when I went through the comments, well, keep in mind, I think this was within a 2 hour window of I think of the actual shooting, and I was stunned that this had happened, and a couple of people in the comments were saying that he's already passed, and I was thinking to myself, no way, no way he could have. And then I went on to Wikipedia. I went on to Google and I looked up Charlie Kirk and found an article about his shooting, and it mentioned, unfortunately, that he had passed. And how do I put this? It hit you, like it hit me. It hit me reading that he had passed, and then that, I guess that kind of like when you get injured or something, you feel that initial burst of pain, and then that sort of fades and it's replaced by a more longer term one. It took a while, but just the sheer, I guess, implications of that and what it meant really started to sink in over the next couple hours, and then and it would have continued probably for a while had it not been late at night, and then I had to go stop and sleep. But I think I'm in a lot of agreement. I'm in agreement with a lot of people out there who, even though we knew the sort of work Charlie Kirk was doing, going out on campuses and meeting sometimes very aggressive and misled people in their responses to him. I don't think many of us actually expected that someone would go as far as they did, and actually take a shot at him and then kill him. So hearing about that, you just sort of, it's like it's the stages of grief, isn't it? You have the 5 stages of grief, and you slowly work yourself through them. But in that stage of denial, you're thinking, no way, there's no way this could have happened. But it happened, and then so there's this attempt to reconcile this information that it had happened with your emotions and your mind saying, no, this couldn't have happened. No one could have done something like that. But it did happen, and not long after I saw that news, then the social media clips the clips of his assassination started being uploaded onto social media. And I think this is where there's a significant problem with this. I saw a video by a psychologist about this, in which they said that it's not healthy, and it's not healthy for people to see this sort of content because of how it's going to mess with your head, and just there is a lot of desensitizing to violence nowadays, but the sheer availability, or if that's the right word, the fact that clips of Charlie Kirk's assassination are now all over the internet to the extent that they are, including in graphic detail, is not good for people's minds. And I say that having seen 3 of them, or rather, it's the same event, but from 3 different angles. There was the first one, which was taken from a distance, and I'm sure you guys, some of you may know which one I'm talking about, is the one from a distance where you can't really see anything. Then there was one taken from his right side, like sort of in front of him, but his right side, which, when I saw that, it was like, oh no, just because the one further away you can't really see much detail. But it's not easy seeing someone die, even a video footage of it. And that's one of the reasons why, as much as I like watching historical documentaries, it's not pleasant seeing people die. And even when it comes to videos of 9/11 that were circulating in preparation for the anniversary, it's not easy watching those videos at all, even if you can't see the faces of the people. But here you could see Charlie Kirk's face as he gets shot, and then he slumps over. But by far the worst clip I had seen, and keep in mind, I'm not bragging about this. I'm not bragging about this at all. I wish I hadn't seen those clips, but this is the big problem with social media. The third shot I saw, or the third angle, was from his left side, where you could see the blood. And dear heavens, I cannot get that image out of my head now. There are some things that'll stick with you. Some things that will stick with you for the rest of your life. And I dread to think how many tens of millions of people, not just the people who were there in person and saw this happen, but the tens of millions of people who've had that image now seared in their head, and how that's going to impact them for the rest of their life. Because we have seen, I guess it's bittersweet, the attention that this is now garnered. So you have a turning point chapters being set, or requests for them being set up about all over the world. I think, it was 32,000 or something. You have all these celebrities and commentators and politicians bringing attention to Charlie Kirk's assassination and stuff. And then you have all the people who are saying that this isn't right, this is wrong, this shouldn't have happened. And both people on the left and the right are coming together and saying that it should never have gotten this far. We need to have more civil discussions, because, as Charlie Kirk said, when the talking stops, that's when violence starts. But as I said, I dread to think how that ripple, how those images are going to ripple out on people's mentalities, because you can't see something like that and remain the same person you are. Anyone who's growing up in the world will eventually reach a point where they lose their innocence in realizing how dark and horrible the world can be, and then end up going through a nihilistic phase, which hopefully they come out of and realize that even if there is darkness, there is some good in the world. But that doesn't mean that you won't go through several stages of that, or repeated phases, when you see different levels of how bad it can get. And so that's why when I was learning about when I was in school, because when I was in school, and that's when ISIS started coming to power, and then you hear about all these executions and martyrdoms of the Coptic Christians. And I remember reading about it and thinking, and seeing the pictures of all the Coptic Christians being lined up, and I was thinking, no way this is happening. And it took me a while to really comprehend that. And then there was me reading about stuff like the Holocaust and just thinking, no way this could have happened, but it did. And then there's this, in which is there's video, it was one thing to see the attempted assassination of Trump, where you could see the blood from his ear and him clutch at his ear and stuff, because he didn't die. It was an unsuccessful attempt. But to see Charlie Kirk die, that, and in such a way, and in the greater context of him speaking with people, and his family being there, and his daughter trying to run to him because she was scared after hearing the gunshot, not realizing he had been shot. That's going to snap a lot of people, for better or worse. It's going to snap a lot of people out of whatever situation they're in. And I'm really glad that people have been civil about this. There hasn't been a destruction of stuff, and it's been mostly prayer and vigils held. I'm very grateful for that, and I think many people out there are bringing attention to this, saying, this is proof that there is a peaceful way we can go about this. And it's quite ironic that he founded an organization called Turning Point, because this definitely will be a turning point one way or another. And so, like I said, it's just, I've seen people compare this to some extent to the assassination of JFK, and how that rippled out throughout the world and world of politics. And I think this will have a similar effect, even if he was, because obviously Charlie Kirk wasn't a president, but he was as widespread and as loved, I believe, to some extent, as JFK was, and if not more, because more people on the planet now, and how much the youth loved Charlie Kirk. And so ultimately we just, other than keeping civil in our discussions and debates, we should also pray for him, obviously pray for him and his family, and that the situation doesn't escalate, because we don't want this to be a precedent where people become too afraid to start speaking out. I mean, even me, although I have political views, I don't share them, because my channel and page on political pages, they're theological, so I talk about matters of theology and the Bible and stuff. But even then, I would absolutely hate if people started trying to suppress what I was saying simply because I was saying it, and then trying to martyr me for it, because other than that inevitably proving me right to some extent, that doesn't mean we should be living in a world where that happens. And the fact that we live in a world where people are assassinated and martyred for such things shows that there is significant room for improvement. And even though it may have seemed like in the short term that this assassination attempt at Charlie Kirk had been successful in silencing him, all it ended up doing is just promoting him on a far greater global stage, showing his dedication towards his own beliefs, and setting him up as a martyr for everything he believed in, including the freedom of speech. So, this video is probably going to be one of the closest or minimal overlaps, or most of an overlap, as it will be with politics. But regardless of what your political beliefs are, unless of course you're on one of the extreme ends in which in which you support this sort of stuff, but that's still wrong. Regardless of your political beliefs, it's good to see that people are recognizing that such behavior was wrong, and that there was no justification for it. And I pray that this becomes, as bittersweet as it is, it becomes a catalyst for the reconciling of the left and the right, that in realizing that there are peaceful alternatives, and the usage of certain rhetoric needs to be stopped, so that we don't dehumanize the other side, which then leads to stuff like this. So I just keep praying for Charlie Kirk and his family, and everyone affected by this, because there will be some people more affected by this than others, especially if they've had experiences with violence, or members of their family being killed for what they believe in. And yeah, just keep praying, and don't lose hope. Don't lose hope ultimately, because there isn't a scattering of people after this assassination. No one's been scattered. Instead, people have started coming together. And so we can be thankful for that there's a hope that things can improve. People are already acting upon that hope. So where there's hope, we should nurture it and help it grow, so that it shines brighter and draws more people to it. It's already happening, and what we can do now is continue to help it grow and light up the darkness that we are surrounded by, and so that we don't feel consumed and crushed by it. And then the second point in this video about my aunt. Unfortunately, she passed. She passed the morning after Charlie Kirk's assassination, after she'd been diagnosed with advanced cancer in her lungs the afternoon before. So, September the 10th was an absolutely terrible day for me. I had some bad news about something unrelated in the morning. In the afternoon, I was told about my aunt's situation. In the evening, Charlie Kirk was assassinated. I woke up the following day on September the 11th, and my aunt had passed. As my as I've heard a lot in my family, at least she's no longer suffering because she already had been dealing with other stuff in her life, and so I know I see a lot of asking for prayers, especially on Facebook about this, but uh, I ask that you do pray for my family, and not just me, but also the rest of my family where my aunt lived, because my aunt married into my family via my uncle, and I have cousins, and within the span of a year, because most of my family that I talk about live together, so within the span of a year, my family have lost my grandmother and my aunt. So my uncle and my cousins and my grandfather are going through a lot, and so I ask that you pray especially for them, that they may remain strong and not despair in the pain that they're experiencing. So the main point of this video, other than asking for prayers for people who are known on a public level or a more personal level, is that we shouldn't despair, and don't lose hope, because hope will always exist. It's just that we may not listen to it or have our attention drawn to it, but like a light in the dark, it's always there, and no matter how small it is, it's still incredibly potent and can be seen from a very long distance away. And when you head towards hope and grow it, nurture it and grow it, it only ever becomes more potent. And so it's inevitable that when tragedy happens, we will go through the stages of grief, but that doesn't mean hope isn't there. It's just that we're distracted from it. So we embrace our grief, we go through the stages, we come to acceptance, and once we wipe our eyes from the tears and the pain that we've experienced, we look for that hope, and then we embrace it and nurture it, so that others may know to also head towards that light that they see in the dark, or that they see in their own darkness. I really hope that makes sense, because when I make these videos, I have an idea of what I want to talk about, and then I end up going off on tangents. But I hope that makes sense to you all. So I'm just going to repeat myself as I end this video. Just continue praying, everyone, and don't lose hope, no matter what happens in your lives. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. So thank you all for watching. God bless you all. See you in the next video, comrades. Until then.